Good morning. I hope everyone is well. Here's a video for you about music very special to me. Maybe hyperbole, but possibly the most beautiful piece of classical music ever written. The four last songs, or equally well known in its original German, Wir letzte Lieder, composed by Richard Strauss at the very end of his life in 1948. Strauss was 84. He died in September of 1949, and the songs were premiered by Furtwängler and the Philharmonia with the great Norwegian soprano Kirsten Flagstad in 1950 in London's Royal Albert Hall. Along with the Oboe Concerto of 1945 and the Second Horn Concerto of 1942, the four last songs represent the autumnal best of Richard Strauss. In the songs, there is no bombast, as found in many of the earlier tone poems, no extra baggage of a storyline, simply Strauss at his magnificent best, with glorious harmonies, soaring lines for the soprano, and an almost flawless level of orchestration. The four songs are Frühling, Spring, September, Beim Schlafengehen, When Falling Asleep, and Im Abendrot, At Sunset. As important as the magnificent music is the choice of words. Frühling, September, and Beim Schlafengehen are poems by Hermann Hesse, and Im Abendrot is a poem by Joseph von Eichendorff. The title was provided after Strauss died by his friend Ernst Roth. Roth published the songs as a group in 1950. When writing the songs, Strauss knew the end was near and had asked specifically for a great conductor, a great orchestra, with Flagstad to premiere his songs in the event of his death. Strauss had a long, happy marriage with the soprano Pauline de Ahna. They were married for 54 years. They had one son, Franz, and de Ahna died only 8 months after her husband. Their son was named after Strauss's father, Munich's principal horn. Father Franz and wife Pauline were primary inspirations for Strauss's preeminence writing for the horn and the soprano voice. Unlike the earlier tone poems where Strauss inserted quotes from his works, here we get one very gentle, supremely apt quote at the end of At Sunset, Im Abendrot. A brief glimpse of a much earlier work, the so-called Transfiguration theme from Tod und Verklärung, Death and Transfiguration. It sets up the most sublime, calm coda before the eternal sleep. Strauss happened to be my father's favorite composer, and my brother and I chose Beim Schlafengehen for the musical centerpiece of my father's funeral. So, to the recordings. We are lucky this fiendishly difficult work, a veritable Everest for the soprano voice, has so many great recordings, especially when the work has several massive hurdles. One is age. Simply, the work needs a mature voice. Second is absolute security of your technique. And third, breath control. The suggestions I'll be making are sopranos of the greatest stature, mature, technically brilliant sopranos with glorious personal imprints on their voice. Your favorite? Whichever fits with your view of the music and the text. I'll give you my favorites, both streaming and vinyl, and others that are also wonderful and can be first choices. I'd love to read yours below. When I asked the question to our team at Audiophilia, I got lots of responses, including suggestions Lucia Pop, conducted by Tenstedt, De La Casa, conducted by Carl Böhm, and I'd like to quote the answer in full of one of our writers. Well, that's a biggie. My 16th century counterpoint teacher said the epitome of German aristocratic sophistication and beauty was evinced in Schwarzkopf's performance. All of us had this recording in the 70s. I will not sling arrows at past or future goddesses, but it is difficult to place this recording now with my top 3 or 4. However, we must all give thanks to her for modeling this piece for every soprano that came after. So, my choice: Norman with Kurt Masur, Lucia Pop with Tenstedt, Swal Isakowski with Marek Janowitz, Kiriti Kana with Davis. Price with Leinsdorf is disappointing, as is Anna Netrebko with Barenboim. Janowitz with Garian is too slow and, in my opinion, can't pull it off. But I may change my mind with the next bowel movement. Who knows? If you know the Audiophilia writers, you may guess the author from the last sentence. Anyway, here's my 2 cents. Streaming, as always, is Cobas. Sadly, only a couple of recordings have been remastered, and only to 24-bit 48 kHz. As such, my recommendations are CD quality only. I've listened at length to the ladies recommended by the team. For all but one, I agree wholeheartedly. A couple stand out not because of the fabulous singing or recording, but for the orchestral accompaniment. Lucia Pop's conductor, Klaus Tenstedt, renowned for the depth and insight of his interpretations, is magnificent here. And as Lucia Pop is so wonderful in the songs, it's a very easy top choice for some, and both Jim Norris and Charles Brown have Pop in top place. And I very much enjoyed the hitherto unknown to me Swal Iskokovsky, recommended by Charles. My recommendations begin with a stream, although the CD is plentiful, having been reprinted umpteen times. The legendary performance by American powerhouse Jessye Norman. Recorded beautifully on Philips, accompanied by a magnificent sounding Gewandhaus conducted by their music director Kurt Masur. What praise hasn't been lavished on this famous record? Other singers may bring more word painting, more dynamic shading, but no one on record can match Norman for power and breath control. Listen to her opening phrase in Frühling. That should convince you. In fact, I listened carefully to the opening phrase of all the performances as it tells a lot of tales. Tone, text, phrasing, breath control, dynamics, the lot. It's the same for the magnificent line after the famous violin solo in Beim Schlafengehen. Almost the equal to Norman for power and phrasing, but with even more finesse, is another American giant, Renee Fleming, her later 2008 Decca recording with Telemann and the Munich Phil. Very fine, as is her earlier 1996 Jessye version with Christoph Eschenbach conducting a wonderful sounding Houston Symphony. Sadly, I cannot recommend a few. Felicity Lott, Anna Netrebko, and Lisa Davidson. All have good qualities but fall short of the best. And my third rec for streaming would be a second vote for Kiriti Kanoa, probably the most beautiful soprano voice of the past 50 years. And also a third vote for Lucia Pop, for all the reasons I mentioned before. In all the first recommendations, and not so recommended, the recordings, orchestras, and conducting are first rate. On purely orchestral terms, I'd lobby for the Leipzig Gewandhaus with Jessye Norman. Truly remarkable playing, and more importantly, tone and control, and their violin soloist is the best. I'll link to a special video with Jessye Norman talking about the violinist and the special circumstances surrounding the recording. I've already mentioned conductor choice, Tenstedt. He achieved things only Masur comes close to. It's no surprise that my two favorite recordings I have are on vinyl. One is a legendary original, and one is a much improved remaster. Let's go. The streaming is good, and the CD quality is good, but there's nothing like great vinyl. There are two particular performances on vinyl that actually happen to be my favorite performances as well. Go figure. Let's start with the first one. This is the new reissue from Deutsche Grammophon, the original series from the Emil Berliner Studios. Has also Death and Transfiguration on it, but it has the most wonderful four last songs with Gundula Janowitz, with the Berlin Phil, and hopefully Carry On. It was recorded in 1973 at the Jesus Christ Church in Berlin. And the original version record was very good. One of Carry On's better ones, not too much fiddling around. It's Carry On with Gundula Janowitz, the soprano. And even though it was very good, this remaster by Rainier Maillard and Sidney Meyer is truly astounding. One of the better ones from the series. Very highly recommended. So why is this one of my favorites? Well, the orchestral playing is beautiful. It's very, very important in this. We discussed that already. And Carry On conducts it very, very well. But Gundula Janowitz has a very powerful sound. Now, sometimes on the digital, it can sound a little glassy. And on my original recording, it was tamed somewhat. But this remaster really does tame it down a lot. But it still has a very slight edge when the instrument gets up really, really high. And she's really pounding out the dynamics. But still, she's so musical and she's so powerful. And she really gets the essence of the words across very beautifully. So, as far as the orchestral playing is concerned, first class. Recording is being remastered beautifully. I would recommend this very highly. Now, does she sing it better than Lucia Pop or Jessye Norman, probably not. I would say it's up there. But, Jessye Norman and Lucia Pop are not on record. They're digital recordings, and they're very good, and they sound very good on CD. I've had both the CDs. But for streaming, it just can't match the vinyl. The vinyl is very good. And this new remaster is so beautiful. The imaging is gorgeous. The instruments sound much more separate. The soundstage is good. That church sometimes, DG made a hash of that church, the Jesus Christ Church. It's kind of congealed with odd spotlighting. This one actually wasn't like that. It was actually pretty good. I wouldn't call it audiophile, but now this is an audiophile record with a performance to match. So I can highly recommend this. It's no Tulip, but the original mid-70s label. Very beautifully done. There's a reason this was David Bowie's favorite classical piece of music, and many other people as well. It's staggeringly beautiful. It's hard to, I've heard it hundreds of times, and it never ceases to amaze me for its beauty. When I first started getting into this piece, it was Jessye Norman, and Jessye Norman. And I didn't want to hear about Elizabeth Schwarzkopf and her famous recording. I didn't like her singing from before. Not that I knew much about it, but I kind of made some assumptions that were kind of silly. And a stereophile reviewer, a very nice gentleman, Jacob Serenius, I think his name is, was talking with me about the Four Last Songs on Facebook, and said, Anthony, Schwarzkopf is legendary. You should listen to it again. She's very beautiful. And I did. I took his advice. I did listen to it, and I fell in love with her voice. And this was on streaming. So I searched high and low and found a semicircle second pressing EMI in near mint condition. These go for about $200 now, especially if you have the insert and you have the text as well. So this is near mint. There's a little bit of a crease in the front, and you can see in the glare there. I took the plastic off to help with the glare. It still doesn't matter. Also, a very nice gentleman wrote me some nice notes in the comments and then said, by the way, Anthony, you're giving me vertigo. I do a lot of this. So I'm working hard at it. But whoever that gentleman was, I took your advice. I'm working hard at it to keep it a little more still. Anyway, this is a magnificent artistic achievement and a historical document. 1966, and it was recorded in the Grunewald Church in Berlin. When Schwarzkopf had those soaring lines, she just floats across the orchestra. It's absolutely beautiful. This is, I think, by far the best actual recording. This is an original LP, and it was recorded by German engineers under her husband, Walter Legg, as producer. And it's magnificent in every way. And the original is superb. The imaging, the soundstage. But let's just talk a little bit about her voice. Is it the best instrument? No. I think Jessye Norman and even Lucia Pop have a beat just for pure technique. Kiri maybe for beauty. But there's dare I say, innocence about her voice, and not simplicity. But there's no artifice about her voice. It's just pure emotion with a beautiful sound, and I absolutely love it. It took me a while, but I fell in love with it, and this is one of my prized possessions, this original LP. It's Columbia, EMI. The back again is absolutely pristine cognition. It's Sax 5258. These run about $200 on Discogs now. And there's the beautiful, some say semicircle, I say demi-lune, same thing, half moon. This is a second pressing, Columbia. So yes, they're my choices, streaming and vinyl. The streaming ones, look, if you have Jessye Norman, if you have Lucia Pop, or some of the others you mentioned, Kiri Takanoa, look, you can't go wrong. They're amazing performances. For something so fiendishly difficult, though we have so many great performances, technically and musically great performances, is wonderful. So you can kind of just pick and choose on if you're streaming and get an amazing emotional experience. But if you want to get the very, very best in sound, in imaging, in soundstage, the way the voice floats across the orchestra, these two records are absolutely amazing. If I had to choose one, if Mr. Bowie said to me, Anthony, what's your favorite? That's the one I want to buy. I would definitely say the Schwarzkopf. She's not for everybody, but for me, she owns this piece, lock, stock, and barrel. Emotionally, musically, there's something about her voice that connects with those amazing words by Hermann Hesse and von Eichendorff. So that's it. I hope you get some pleasure and some information about, and you get to listen to the 4 last songs. If you don't know the 4 last songs, you are in for a treat. And I think no matter which ones you choose from the ones we've suggested, I think you'll enjoy it. But if you're a vinyl guy, you should try and get those 2 vinyl pressings. They're both wonderful. So thank you so much for watching today. If you get a moment, please watch our live stream every Wednesday at 5 p.m. PST. We're having a great time discussing classical music. Please join us, and we'll see you in the next video.